Hey guys, back today with another Love Dare for Parents. This is day 6. Love is not selfish. Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind regard one another as more important than yourselves. That's Philippians 2:3. Children are God's homework assignment to parents. We are commissioned to love, teach, and train them up for successful adulthood. But this process requires so much careful focus and attention. A father or mother must daily set aside something very specific that will otherwise stand in the way: their own selfishness. Selfishness is like a disease that suffocates our capacity to love. While love asks us to deny ourselves for the sake of another, selfishness demands we put ourselves first at their expense. When we choose to be self-centered, we become less kind and content, more needy, sensitive, and demanding, more unsatisfiable. Moodiness and impatience, laziness and irresponsibility are only selfishness in disguise. And we all struggle with it. We despise this trait in others, but justify it in ourselves. Almost every wrong and sinful action can be traced back to a selfish motive. Love, however, does not seek its own. 1 Corinthians 13:5. It finds satisfaction in bringing kindness, health, and blessing to others. Loving parents are bent on taking good care of the flawed little humans with whom they share their lives. Unselfish people make amazing friends, spouses, and parents. They're willing to table their own demands and lose themselves in the joy of loving, giving, and serving. The more we each learn to daily turn away from our own selfishness, the stronger, more lovable, and fulfilled we can become. Society teaches us to focus on our personal feelings and desires as the highest priority. But children show up constantly needing feeding, cleaning, and leading, which requires a lot of work on our part. They cry when we want quiet, start wars with one another when we want peace, and can knock on the locked door of our bedroom at the most inopportune times. Parents can zero in on the weight of these responsibilities as something that limits their ability to do whatever they want whenever they want. But what our children actually do is uniquely reveal our selfishness in living color and invite us to live outside of its constant demands. This is really one of the uncommon purposes of parenting. God strategically uses our children to help us become less self-centered, less self-absorbed, and more loving, like Him. He stretches and matures us with plenty of opportunities to deny ourselves and demonstrate sacrificial love and patience toward our children, just like He does for us. But in guarding against being selfish around our children, we must also try not to be selfish for our children. Ultimately, our children belong to God even more than they belong to us. And the most loving thing we can do is willingly dedicate them back to Him, guarding against putting our desires for them or their desires for themselves above God's desires. The biblical story of Hannah gives us a wonderful picture of how to wisely view our children. Unable to have a child of her own, she humbly prayed and petitioned the Lord with all her heart, and He blessed her with Samuel. Out of gratefulness, Hannah unselfishly dedicated her beloved son back to the Lord, and God used him in mighty ways to bless their nation and counsel its future kings. In the Gospel of Luke, we see Mary and Joseph dedicating Jesus in the temple, then consistently honoring God with how they parented Him over the years, recognizing Him as belonging to His Heavenly Father. You too are a steward of the children God has entrusted to you. As a steward, you resolve to take full responsibility for their nurture, training, and care, to dedicate them to the Lord, and to purpose in your heart to raise them with God's help and grace. You must refuse to let your selfishness get in the way of what God has called you to do. Otherwise, you'll tend to treat them as an irritation, worry about them like another possession, or worship them as an idol. But when you recognize that God owns them and has made you the loving steward of them, then you can fully enjoy them as God's treasure to be taken care of and offered back to Him. Parents who put their kids first or build their identity around them face a much harder time letting them go. Then those parents are more apt to struggle with their own sense of identity and value after their kids are gone. We must remember that selfishness and love are in constant opposition to one another. You can't be acting out of real love and selfishness at the same time. Selfishness causes us to put our own hobbies, entertainment, and comfort above the needs of our children. It leads many parents to refuse to have more children because they don't want anything to stretch them further beyond themselves. Choosing to love your children will cause you to say no to what you want so you can say yes to what they need. It doesn't mean you cannot enjoy personal fulfillment, but you don't negate their welfare and needs just so you can enjoy your own. Love instead fights for what is best in God's eyes with a heart of gratitude. We should thank God for granting us the daily opportunity to love our children unselfishly and to grow stronger, wiser, and more Christ-like in the process. So here's today's love dare. Take some time in prayer to identify and push aside any hurdles of selfishness in your own life that may be keeping you from loving your children more effectively. Then purpose to dedicate your children to the Lord as a gift back to Him. And that's a good one. Selfishness is such an incredible problem for all of us. And it's really about staying on top of giving yourself to the Lord and asking Him to do a work in you from the inside out. That's what God promises to do. It's an inside out work. And we go to work on ourselves first. And then in alignment with that work that's going on within us, we just give that to the people that are closest to us. So we create an environment that is godly. So you're living in relationship with the King of Kings, and God's in the kingdom of heaven, and He says, live in the kingdom of heaven and bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. And so that's what we're doing. We're setting that as the environment that we're going to live in. Now, one of the things I do, because I'm as selfish as the next guy, maybe even more so, but I'm very aware of it, or, it's something that's on my mind that this has to be checked. I will many times do a review of the day and say, how did this go? Did my wife feel like I was engaged in helping her? Because many times my wife does all the motherly things, and I sometimes can just sit in the sidelines and kind of do my own thing. In this past year, I've really tried to stop doing that and then be aware of it when I'm doing it. So typically that will show up in the morning and at night. And so what I do is I will review the day and see how I did, and then I'll make a conscious decision that the next day at this time, I'm going to engage the situation and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, which will be me laying my own selfishness down so I can engage my family and bless my wife and do my part, which is, the Christ life is to lay down your life, take up your cross and follow Him. So taking up your cross and following Him is living out this love dare on a daily basis and praying, always being prayerful, mindful and prayerful about opportunities to live out that self-sacrificial love that is God's. And God does the rest. We're broken and we struggle, but when you're living in trust to the Lord, He's able to align things. I pray a lot about my relationships, that God would align the planets, so to speak, because sometimes everything's got to line up, and then life can cross over those bridges built both ways, and a lot can get done. So you can, we mess up. We don't do this perfectly. But when we're living forthrightly with a desire to give this to God, to be filled with Him and to give it away, He has a way of coming along around us and redeeming the time. In opportune moments, He'll redeem the time. And that's just God being God in your life. So you can trust Him to do that. and just let him do his work in you first and give that to your kids. So God bless you guys. We'll be back with another Love Dare here soon. Bye-bye.